Once she stood beside the Queen at Buckingham Palace, now Meghan Markle finds herself hoping for a simple Instagram tag from Khloe Kardashian. It was meant to be subtle but powerful. A soft gesture wrapped in luxury tissue paper and handwritten notes, Meghan's team sent high-end gift baskets from her lifestyle brand, As Ever, to members of the Kardashian-Jenner inner circle, hoping for a ripple effect. In the Hollywood ecosystem where social validation can be bought with products, instead of billboards, even the most understated post from a Kardashian can translate into millions of eyes and dollars. And for a fleeting moment, it looked like the plan might work. Over the weekend, Khloe Kardashian shared an Instagram story featuring a few of the As Ever products, quietly arranged on a marble counter backlit by California sun. But as followers looked closer, a strange omission became glaring. There was no tag, no caption, no brand name, no mention of Meghan. Just a story that looked more like filler content than any form of endorsement. In the world of Hollywood branding, this wasn't a mistake. It was a message. To the public, it may seem trivial. How much weight can a missing Instagram tag really carry? But in the influencer economy, silence speaks louder than shade. PR strategists call it optical snubbing, the act of receiving a brand's offering, acknowledging it visually, but refusing to engage with it publicly. The unspoken rule, you're not valuable enough to name. For Meghan, the implications were more than personal. They were structural. Her As Ever line had launched with a well-timed burst of intrigue, riding the tailwinds of minimalist luxury trends, and Meghan's fading royal mystique. But after the first wave of buzz traction slowed, sales plateaued, headlines shifted from royal chic to another Meghan venture scarcity tactics, limited drops. Exclusive lists no longer sparked urgency. Instead, they signaled overreaching. Desperate to reignite interest, Meghan turned toward the Kardashian effect, the holy grail of product visibility. And yet what she received wasn't rejection in words, but rejection by omission. The absence of a tag was not an oversight, it was a curated decision. Hollywood noticed. So did Meghan's critics, who were quick to point out the bitter irony, the woman who once denounced the toxic nature of media obsession and said she left royal life to protect her identity, now chasing relevance through the most curated, controversial family in American celebrity culture. The same Kardashians who have weathered waves of backlash over racial commodification, fame engineering, and surgical transformation were now seen as Meghan's latest hopeful allies, and they weren't biting. And while some attempted to spin Khloe's post as neutral, insiders knew better. The Kardashian-Jenner brand machine does not operate in vagueness. If a tag doesn't appear, it's because someone decided it shouldn't. The absence becomes intentional, a digital version of slamming the door, quiet, controlled, irreversible. Worse, this wasn't just about Khloe, it was a signal to others. If Meghan couldn't get a tag from someone whose entire business model is built on social amplification, what hope did she have with the rest of the influencer elite? And behind the scenes, more troubling signs were emerging. A wave of other content creators and celebrities had received the same baskets, yet none had posted anything at all. And in Hollywood, collective silence is never accidental. The silence grew louder by the hour. After Khloe Kardashian's story went live, silent, untagged, and stripped of context, Meghan's team waited. Perhaps another sister would post. Perhaps a mention would come later. Maybe the effect she'd hoped for was merely delayed. But as the hours turned into days, a disquieting pattern emerged. Not one member of the Kardashian-Jenner family engaged, reposted, or even acknowledged the As Ever launch. Behind closed doors, Meghan's team had been counting on what they internally dubbed the Kardashian boost, a surge of attention traffic and legitimacy that could have lifted the brand from respectable soft launch status to viral phenomenon. Gift baskets had been sent with precision, glossy white boxes filled with minimalist packaging, wellness-themed products, and handwritten cards signed simply with love, M. But none of it worked. Instead, what unfolded was a masterclass in Hollywood optics, and the optics were brutal. Industry insiders quickly picked up on what was missing. One branding consultant, speaking under condition of anonymity, described it plainly. A missing tag is louder than a rejection email. It says, "We got your product, we're not impressed." For Meghan, who once spoke of stepping away from royal life to reclaim her identity and pursue purpose, the fallout stung in more ways than one. Her brand had been designed to communicate intention, refinement, and exclusivity, but after the Kardashian cold shoulder, it now read as uncertain, underwhelming, and perhaps most damning, unwanted. Meanwhile, the influencer space, known for its rapid-fire cycles of validation, began to shift. The usual mid-tier content creators, who often repost celebrity gifts, fell silent. The fashion editors who previously praised Meghan's capsule style failed to comment. TikTokers debated whether As Ever was a brand with real soul or just another celeb vanity project. And through it all, the narrative coalesced around a single idea: Meghan wasn't driving demand, she was chasing it. Worse still, the contrast between Meghan and the Kardashian empire was impossible to ignore, where Meghan offered a soft-spoken, roll-out vague mission statements and poetic messaging. The Kardashians, particularly Kim and Kris, continued churning out content campaigns and calculated collaborations with machine-like precision. Meghan appeared by comparison hesitant and disjointed, and in an industry where attention is both the currency and the battlefield, she had just lost a very public skirmish. Her critics, emboldened by the optics, wasted no time framing the moment as proof of desperation. Once a global figure who could move headlines with a single appearance, Meghan was now being painted as someone dependent on borrowed spotlight, sending baskets to influencers in hopes of being seen, hoping to ride waves created by others. The narrative turned cruel, from palace to product placements, one tabloid quipped. And yet the most damaging response wasn't loud. It wasn't in the snide tweets or the podcast commentary, it was the eerie, coordinated quiet. Not one A-lister reposted, not one influencer stitched a TikTok, not one podcast guest mentioned her by name. Meghan had entered the most dangerous terrain in all of Hollywood PR, the dead zone where no one attacks, but no one engages. But what Meghan didn't yet know, what even her closest advisors had missed, was that this collective silence had not emerged organically. It was in fact the result of a calculated discussion inside the Kardashian media machine, one that would soon become public in a way she never anticipated. For a brief moment, Meghan's supporters hoped the silence was merely strategic, a soft delay before a wave of support would eventually arrive. Perhaps the Kardashians were saving their endorsement for a coordinated push. Perhaps they simply needed time. But that illusion shattered when a leaked internal memo from a Kardashian PR team surfaced online, first through a mid-tier gossip account, and then quickly validated by two independent industry insiders. The contents were short but damning. Do not tag or mention as ever. Aligning with that brand does not support our current trajectory. It wasn't just a passive lack of interest, it was an active decision. The message had been circulated in the lead-up to Meghan's gift basket deliveries, not as a reaction to what was inside them, but as a clear media strategy. The Kardashian-Jenner empire, known for its ruthless discipline and laser-focused branding, had already made up its mind. Meghan Markle, Duchess or not, did not serve the empire. What shocked observers wasn't just the bluntness of the directive, it was the timing. The memo had been written before Khloe posted her now notorious story, before the social media silence, before the industry froze, which meant the cold shoulder wasn't instinctive. It was engineered. And with that memo, public sympathy began to fracture. What had once looked like accidental neglect now took on a different hue: calculated dismissal. Commentators began to dissect the move as a quiet power play by the Kardashians, who had no interest in becoming pawns in Meghan's rebranding arc. One Hollywood strategist explained, "They saw the risk and acted preemptively. Meghan isn't just a brand in flux, she's unpredictable, polarizing, and surrounded by a media storm they don't need." The betrayal cut deeper because of its subtlety. Meghan had hoped to re-enter the cultural conversation on her own terms, not as a royal, not as a scandal, but as a founder, a creator, a tastemaker. But the Kardashians had refused to even grant her that illusion. Their silence wasn't personal, it was corporate. And it was working. Other influencers, once neutral, began to quietly step back. One prominent lifestyle blogger revealed anonymously that she had been asked by a brand partner to hold off on any collaboration with as ever due to media ambiguity. Translation: Meghan's name no longer guaranteed safety, only questions. The fallout extended beyond the PR sphere. Media analysts noted a shift in how Meghan was being referenced, not as a global changemaker or controversial royal, but as a former celebrity grasping at a platform that no longer wanted her. One podcast episode titled "Falling from Relevance" even drew a timeline tracing her media decline, post-Oprah, culminating in the untagged Kardashian moment as the symbolic point of no return. And behind the scenes, Meghan was said to be devastated not just by the rejection, but by the optics. She had played the game, followed the rules, sent the gifts, written the notes, only to be reminded in the most clinical way possible that goodwill in Hollywood isn't owed, it's earned, and in her case, it had quietly expired. But as the backlash brewed and silence solidified, one thing remained unclear: was this a rejection solely from the Kardashian camp, or had Meghan's name been quietly flagged across the entire influencer matrix, guided by conversations even her team didn't yet know had taken place? What started as a cold gesture from one Kardashian soon became a warning flare for an entire industry. In the wake of the leaked PR memo, multiple brands began quietly adjusting their internal alignment sheets, those unseen spreadsheets that determine which influencers receive PR packages, invitations, collaborations, And most importantly, which ones don't? And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Meghan Markle's name started disappearing from the lists. It wasn't an official blacklist. There were no public statements, no headline-grabbing retractions. Instead, the changes crept in through routine decisions, an email not returned a panel spot, quietly reassigned a collaboration that no longer fit the brand's vision. In the world of high-tier celebrity marketing, these shifts don't make noise, but they make history. According to an insider at a major beauty conglomerate, a planned co-branded initiative between As Ever and a luxury skincare line was shelved after internal polling showed uncertainty around Meghan's media narrative. The data wasn't negative, but it wasn't strong, and in the branding world, lukewarm is lethal. She's just not delivering cultural velocity, the insider said, and worse, she might drag ours down with her. The situation was only compounded when an internal email from a talent agency surfaced via yet another anonymous leak, revealing that a short list of brand risk personalities had been distributed to junior staff as a reference. Meghan was on it. The phrasing was clinical, potentially polarizing, lacking consistent audience loyalty, subject to unpredictable backlash. Others on the list were controversial comedians or scandal-plagued TikTok stars. Meghan was the only royal. The irony was brutal. Meghan had once been framed as a disruptor, a symbol of new blood shaking centuries of outdated monarchy, but now in Hollywood she was being reframed not as dangerous to the system, but dangerous to the algorithm. She didn't pull consistent engagement. She didn't guarantee virality. She didn't feel safe. Meanwhile, the influencer ecosystem, especially the mid-tier names who thrive off association with aspirational elite, began distancing themselves. No one wanted to be the first to post a collaboration that flopped. No one wanted to field questions about why they aligned with a brand that had been subtly rejected by the Kardashians. The unspoken sentiment was clear: if the empire said no, the rest wouldn't risk a yes. Harry once again was drawn into the discourse not through scandal, but through imagery. Memes began circulating of him trailing Meghan through Montecito farmers markets or waiting beside her at awkward industry dinners, his face unreadable. A viral comment under one of the posts summed it up cruelly: from Invictus to Invisible. The internet had decided Harry wasn't the brand anymore, he was the backdrop. Back at As Ever, the analytics told a grim story. Traffic had spiked with the product launch, dipped after Khloe's non-tag, and flatlined after the industry pullback. The brand team attempted to pivot, pushing out curated content, re-editing marketing language, whispering to friendly journalists about a second wave, but the momentum had gone. Buzz was replaced with indifference. And then, just as the last waves of interest began to fade, an offhand remark in a podcast by a Kardashian family insider sparked a fresh round of speculation, one that hinted Meghan had broken an unspoken Hollywood code and might not be able to recover from the breach. By the time the podcast clip made its rounds, 36 seconds of casual conversation laced with calculated implication, the damage had already been done. In the episode, a Kardashian-adjacent media figure was asked why none of the sisters had supported Meghan's launch. The response came with a chuckle and a shrug, but the words hit harder than any formal statement. Some people don't get how this world works. You can't just show up one day with a product and think clout is automatic. You earn your place here. We protect the circle, not hand it out. No name was mentioned, but none was needed. For many, it was the final blow, not because it was cruel, but because it rang with the quiet authority of an unspoken rule finally spoken aloud. Meghan hadn't just been rejected. She'd been defined as out of bounds, unworthy of alignment, a disruptor. Not because she threatened the system, but because she failed to respect it. The silence that followed was not hollow, it was total. As Ever faded from feeds, email open rates dropped, retail interest waned. A planned PR follow-up with stylists and press was canceled indefinitely. The team went dark. Meghan herself was rarely seen outside Montecito in the weeks that followed her public-facing image, now curated through past photos, vague quotes, and soft-focus storytelling. For Harry, the retreat became more personal. Friends noticed his growing discomfort, his withdrawal from events, his polite but distant demeanor. Sources close to the couple described a tension between holding the line, staying above the fray, and the gnawing instinct to speak, to correct, to reclaim. But they didn't speak, not this time. Because this time, there was nothing to fight against. No article to refute, no smear campaign to name. There was only absence, a space once filled with possibility, now emptied by indifference. And that perhaps is what makes this exile the most painful of all. Not scandal, not crisis, not conflict, just silence. The kind that Hollywood uses to say, you no longer matter. But the question lingers: did Meghan miscalculate the rules of this world, overestimate her capital chase validation from the very structures she once opposed? Or was she once again punished for refusing to play the game the way others demand? Was this the natural end of a fame arc, too dependent on borrowed power? or the consequence of entering a system more ruthless, more gate-kept, and less forgiving than royalty ever was? You tell us. Is Meghan's fall from grace a self-inflicted PR spiral? Too much, too fast, too performative, or the result of Hollywood's hypocrisy rewarding compliance and punishing anyone who dares to challenge its hierarchy?